meeting of November 14th, 2024 for the HRC of Palo Alto. Can you do the roll call, please?
Commissioner Barr,
Here.
Commissioner Causey,
Here.
Chair Eberly, Commissioner Shea, Vice Chair Kraus,
Here.
Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Stimler. Present. Vice Chair, you have a quorum.
Okay. We'll go to public comments, and I'll read the statement for the parameters under which we'll have public comment. Now it is the time for public comment on items not on the agenda. This section of the agenda is where any person can speak to the HRC and express their views. These are the views of individuals and not the views of the city or the HRC. In Palo Alto, we're committed to a culture of acceptance where all members of our diverse community feel included, safe, and respected. We encourage all speakers to honor these values and express their message without intimidation, discrimination, or language that disrespects any person. The public should know, however, the Brown Act requires cities to accept public comments, and the U.S. Constitution provides strong support for freedom of speech. The city honors these rights, even if we strongly disagree with the speaker's message, unless the speaker disrupts the meeting or violates the HRC's rules of conduct. And there will be no comments that demean or defame any members of the commission. Let's go. So are there agenda, public comment, do we have anybody?
There are no raised hands, Vice Chair.
Okay. Are there agenda changes, additions, or deletions? Okay, let's move to the approval of the minutes. Mink, is there anything special that we need to do so we're in compliance?
I would say just do them separately.
Okay, the approval of the minutes for Thursday, October 10th, 2024. Do I have questions or confirmations? Do we have do we need a resolution?
You need a motion for each
We
of
need
them.
a motion.
A move to approve.
Will someone second
I'll
it?
second.
Thank you. Sorry. Can we call the vote?
Did we just say aye or? is it by
Yes,
voice?
Commissioner Barr,
Aye.
Vice Chair Kraus,
Aye.
Commissioner Stimler,
Aye.
Commissioner Causey.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Can we move to the approval of minutes for Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024? We need a motion.
I would approve that I would move that we approve the minutes of October 23rd.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Can you call the vote, please?
Commissioner Barr,
Aye.
Vice Chair Kraus,
Aye.
Commissioner Stimler,
Aye.
Commissioner Causey.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Should we move to business items number 1? Or do we need another public comment before them?
There is not a need for another public comment at this point, so you can move to agenda item, I believe it's number 3, Vice Chair.
We can't move to number 1 first?
It's actually number 3 on the agenda. It's just the
Oh,
first
I'm
business
sorry.
item.
Mine is numbered differently. Number 3.
I am starting, Vice Chair, if that's where you'd like me to start with. So we are
Yes,
very
please.
pleased as staff with our partner agency, Heart and Home Collaborative, to be giving you an overview of what happened last year with the pilot of the overnight warming location and our plans for this year, give you a little bit of sense of what happens at the Owl, who comes, the services that are offered to them while they're there. And I can just say that 2 years ago, the city tried to put together an owl and really had a hard time. And the problem was we had a hard time getting staff and we had a hard time finding just an expert staff being able to do it. Some of the other places or some of the other factors could have fallen into place, but you need staff and you need a leadership group that really has expertise and has a heart to do the work. And when we were doing some pre-meetings and Heart and Home Collaborative raised their hand to be in partnership with us, it was a great day. So Mary and Aparna will introduce themselves. Aparna is here remotely and you'll see her on the camera in a minute. There she is. They are both warriors for services for the unhoused, and they'll share a little bit with you. And if there's a point for me to chime in, I will, but Mary and Aparna will do most of the presentation. So Mary, do you want to start just introducing yourself and then go
Yes.
to Aparna, and then we have a nice PowerPoint.
Hi, my name is Mary Wisniewski, and I am the board president of Heart and Home Collaborative. We are an experienced provider of homeless services here in Palo Alto. We operate on a rotating shelter model, which is familiar to many people from Hotel de Zinc, which is another longtime service here in the city, and different than Hotel de Zinc or programs that are operated through the Opportunity Center. We are a fully volunteer-managed nonprofit. All of, aside from our paid staff, the labor that goes into making our work is done by volunteers. And one of the things that I'm excited to speak about today is that we have 10 years of experience operating women's shelter here in the area. There's a photo here that is just a gorgeous picture of the way the shelter looks right now. Cozy and welcoming and very comfortable for the women who are staying with us. That program was, of course, founded by Stanford students, and we carry the torch for the vision that Aparna had when she founded the organization back in 2012. I want to make sure that we honor the faith partners that are hosting our shelter right now. The Heart and Home shelter would not have any space to operate out of if we did not have the volunteer space donation from churches who step up and provide that space for us. And it was the connection to the churches that got us interested in the overnight warming location program in the beginning because of the death of a person in College Terrace neighborhood and the pastor at University Lutheran Church who really got us on the path of considering whether it would be possible to do something here in North County. And I want to introduce Aparna Subramaniam, who is our secretary of the Heart and Home program, and she will be doing, as the director of the OWL program, she will be speaking to our contribution to this pilot program last year and to the ongoing work that's going on. And we're really grateful that you took the chance to do this with us, and we're really pleased with the success that we had last year. So over to Aparna.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, as Mary mentioned, my name is Aparna. I work with Heart and Home Collaborative, and one of my primary roles there is as the director of the OWL program. So I wanted to start by talking about Theodore Nelson Clegg Jr. On February 23rd, 2022, Theodore Nelson Clegg Jr. passed away at the Shell gas station on Stanford Avenue in El Camino Real. It was 39 degrees out that night. Just down the street from that Shell station is University Lutheran Church, who's been a longstanding a host site for our women's shelter. And one of our founding board members, Pastor Greg Schaefer, and Mary, our board president, are both members of that church and were moved to action by Mr. Clegg's death because it reinforced something that we already knew, which is that unhoused individuals face much higher mortality rates than individuals who are housed. In Santa Clara County, the medical examiner's office routinely reports more than 200 deaths a year among individuals who are unhoused. And to give this some context, unhoused individuals on average die at age 52 in Santa Clara County, while housed residents on average die in their 80s. A lot of research has gone into trying to understand why mortality rates are so high among folks who are unhoused. And of course, I'm sure you know that there are many complex factors that go into this, but certainly one of them is exposure to weather. So just as an example, and I'm not a doctor, but just as an example, Theodore Clegg's official cause of death was coronary atherosclerosis. And exposure to cold weather has been shown to significantly exacerbate that condition. So knowing this, in many parts of the county, they offer overnight warming locations to help keep people safe overnight when temperatures dip or when it rains or when there are other severe weather conditions. For example, this is a flyer advertising 2 owls in San Jose. And for people in San Jose, this is really an excellent resource to have the option to come indoors at night. But the problem is for people like Theodore Clegg, who is way up in Palo Alto, getting to many of the owls in the county is a challenge because it can take an hour and a half or longer by bus. So these are the 2 owls on this flyer, and there are a few other owls, but they're almost all much further south in the county. So when we partnered with the city, Heart and Home and the city kind of partnered together, we wanted to build on the success of some of these other programs, but just kind of do it here in Palo Alto. So in particular, our goal was to save lives during an inclement weather emergency by offering a place indoors on nights when unsheltered residents won't reliably survive overnight outdoors. To do this effectively, we realized that it's important to prioritize safety. So safety of the clients who are staying with us overnight, but also the safety of people in the neighborhood around us. It's important to be respectful of our participants and also of the space that we're in. And since this is a life-saving service, it's critical to make it as accessible as possible to as many people who need it, as long as they can be safe and respectful member of our community for the night. The overnight warming, or at least our overnight warming location, was not open every single night in our pilot year. It was only open on nights when we had what was called inclement weather. So this is severe weather that makes it unsafe to be outdoors. And the county officially designates nights that have inclement weather based on a number of factors. I think on their website, they list like 6 or 7 different conditions, but it's based on things like, is it very cold out? Is it raining a lot? Is it windy? Are there multiple days of bad weather back to back? And if you're interested, you can actually sign up to receive inclement weather alerts by texting bad weather to 888-777. It's a nice way to stay informed in terms of what's happening. And actually, Minka and I subscribe to these alerts. So we get text messages like this on our phone, and that's how we know when we're going to activate OWL. So when the county informs us that the county informs us usually a couple days in advance that they're planning on issuing an inclement weather activation. And Those are the nights. So those are the nights that we are open. So for this particular activation, we probably would have been open Wednesday and Thursday night. And it gives us a couple days to just schedule staff, get the security contract in place, and do a number of other logistical things that have to happen for us to be able to open. And last year, the county had 15 nights of inclement weather activation for which we were open. When we know we're going to open, we also reach out to our network of local homeless services providers. We've given them all the little information cards pictured here. They are about the size of a business card, and they have information about where we operate, what the hours are, but also just some key policy pieces so that people understand what to expect when they get there. We work with many of the local agencies that you're probably familiar with, the Opportunity Services Center, Downtown Streets team, the homeless outreach teams. And we also make these cards available at places like the libraries where unhoused individuals may go during the day in order to stay warm. So on nights when we're activated and we're open, we typically are doing stuff at the library between 6 p.m. and 7 a.m. That way we stay clear of the library's operating hours from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Usually we get there at around 6 and start setting up. Since the weather is bad outside, we allow participants to wait inside while we set up. And then we usually, let people check in, have a quick dinner, and really what most people want to do is just lay down, rest, sleep for as many hours as they can before they have to wake up in the morning. So typically we're up by 6 a.m. and the libraries reset and we try to get out the door at around 7. This was a list, but I want to give you maybe a more visual kind of description of what this looks like night over night. As you can well imagine, the running an overnight warming location takes a lot of physical materials. You need bedding, you need cleaning supplies, tons of odds and ends. And we keep all of that stored in a shed that is located right outside the library. It's on the back patio, kind of tucked in a corner. And it's one of those little plastic sheds that snap together. And in fact, we had a team of our volunteers from Heart and Home come and assemble that shed. For the owl, you can see Mary there, I think, working with some weather stripping. The owl itself, the sleeping room for the owl is the program room in the library. So when we get there at 6, there are a bunch of tables out because people have been sitting there and working and reading. And what we do, our staff and even sometimes clients who want to pitch in will fold up those tables, push them off to the side, bring in all of the bedding and other things from the storage shed inside and start setting it up. You'll notice that clients sleep on those little trifold camping mattresses. And we give them usually 2 sheets and a blanket for the night. And this may look very simple, but one participant told us it was the first time I slept through the night in ages. We also have a little seating area in the lobby of the library, but apart from that, most of the library is closed off to participants during the OWL's operating hours. And I can't say enough, the OWL only happens because of our absolutely fantastic team of staff who are there every night that we're open and make all of this work possible. Our staff are typically folks who have had significant experience working with unhoused individuals or similar communities. Some of them might be case managers or outreach workers at local homeless services agencies. Some others are security persons or nurses or kind of working in other professions where they're likely to encounter our community often. Really, the staff are a big part of what participants have appreciated about the space. One person told us the staff was friendly, and this person's also a big reader. So she remarked that I was able to pick out a book to read because the library had a free book collection out that day. I'm sorry, I should also, just to speak to staffing a little bit more, I forgot to mention, so we have one staff member who's there kind of from opening to closing. Sometimes we split that into 2 shifts, but we also have a security person there the whole time. So 2 people kind of there the entire time, and then a 3rd person who comes in just at opening and closing to make sure that we're setting up and that we're then kind of leaving the library in good condition when we exit in the morning. And staff in the evening will check people in as they arrive in OWL. During check-in, we go over our program guidelines with participants and also do a temperature check and symptom screening for COVID-19 or other infectious illness. And we try to offer a little food and drink. We don't have a microwave, so any hot food we offer has to be made with hot water from a kettle. So that means dinner is usually instant ramen. Breakfast is usually instant oatmeal. Those are both things that you can just pour hot water into the cup and make it. And then we also have warm beverages like tea, coffee, and everyone's favorite hot chocolate, which we have available all night for folks. And again, all of this may seem very simple, but I just want to share kind of an anecdote of one night when on our first night open, I was staff, and in the morning, you know, I was kind of going around making sure everyone had woken up. And one gentleman, he woke up, he kind of got out of bed and he came over to me and, you know, he shared that he was recently out of rehab. And he said, you know, this was exactly what I needed. A safe space to sleep and a warm meal, even if it was just for a night. And if you think about, if we kind of total up all clients who are at the OWL on all 15 nights that we were open, we were able to provide 112 such nights indoors for folks in our pilot year. This included 33 unique clients. So we have a maximum of 10 people per night, but some people kind of, you know, were there multiple nights. And 80% of people who stayed with us said that they call Palo Alto home. Many of the folks who stayed with us are actually in the downtown area, in the library, much of the time. In fact, many people actually heard about the program from the downtown library because they were already there during the day. We were also able to serve a number of folks who would have been very vulnerable outside, but for this program. So about a third of our participants were seniors, or they had chronic illness or a disability. And then demographically, a little over a quarter of our participants were women and people of color. I'm really excited that we're gonna, you know, get to offer the service again this year. If some of you have liked what you've seen and would like to support us this year, there are a few things you can do. You're welcome to sign up for weather alerts on your phone. I had given the information to do that earlier. I think this is just a nice way to be informed on what's going on and to keep others around you safe. Now, as much as participants love instant ramen, and they really do, there were some nights when community members volunteered to bring in dinner. They either cooked something or they bought takeout and brought it in, and people really, of course, appreciated that so much as well. So if you would like to sign up to be informed when we are opening, you can email us at info@hhcollab.org, and I'll just add you to the list that I put out dinner asks to. And then lastly, of course, we encourage anyone to give out information cards to people who might want to know about the overnight warming location. We are planning on having a community open house at the library for the overnight warming location. The date and time are still to be determined, but we're hoping that this can be an opportunity for us to have some information materials about the OWL, you know, some presentation materials, but also for people to just be able to physically see, you know, what are the mattresses on the floor, like what types of food do we have? So to just get a better sense, have it in the library so people can have a better sense of what the operations are. And with that, I thank you for your time, and I'm excited to hear your questions.
And thank you so much, Aparna and Mary. Just a few things to add. We are just very grateful for the partnership, as I said before, with Heart and Home Collaborative. I'm also grateful for many of my colleagues in the Community Services Department that help make the OWL possible. Elena spends countless hours getting food, getting supplies for the program. We have custodial staff in our department that get there early in the morning after an OWL to make sure it's all expertly, professionally cleaned before it reopens. As a library, the downtown library staff, the library has been nothing but supportive of this program. So I want to call out the line staff at the library and the leadership staff. It would not be possible without their support. So when you start thanking people, you always forget someone. So forgive me if I forgot someone. Just leadership in the city as well who have been supportive of the program.
It was bold.
Pardon?
It was bold to take it on.
So I also want to just give information on warming centers because that's listed on the agenda as well. So any of our Palo Alto libraries, probably most appropriately some of the larger ones, but any of them are open as warming, cooling, clean air, get out of the rain places to go. As Aparna alluded to, that many of the folks that end up staying at the warming center tend to be folks that were at the library. What she didn't say is usually it's the staff. We had many local staff work at the OWL last year, and the folks that were staying there were overwhelmingly known to them. So it was like, hi, Bob, come on in. They did the check-in period as well. So they were known to them. And I was going to say something else. Oh, the thing that I wanted to say is, so I was there at the training night and I was there other nights just in the beginning part. And this is what I witnessed. I witnessed Mary, witnessed Aparna, and witnessed other Heart and Home staff. It's not just here's your cot, go sit down. I noticed them in like engaged conversations with people, giving people back their humanity when they're in there for the program. And I think that is something that all individuals that work with the unhoused strive to do, but in some of these larger ongoing programs, or the really large ones, they don't have the capacity to do. So I think this program really shows these individuals that we care. I always hope that the more you show people you care and the more connections you make, the more willing they'll be to be engaged in services and build that trust with local providers to work on a housing plan or get medical care plan or whatever level of service provision that they're ready to accept. So now I turn it back to you, Vice Chair.
I just want to say thank you. I'm on.
I hear you.
I want to say thank you and really acknowledge you and say, I see you and everyone sees you. And what you're doing is the work of angels. Here's my question for you. Mary, how does this connect to the women's shelter that you run? Is that separate? Is there spillover? Because you're a heads-up grantee,
We are.
joyously granted to you. So I've lots those questions for you.
Is that right? Okay. Yes, they are separate programs. They are two separate programs. The overnight warming location program is a low barrier shelter, which means anybody can come in. It also means men and women are in there. It means that we are not screening anyone. The women's shelter is an ongoing program. Once someone is admitted to shelter, they can come back every night. It's still an uncomfortable situation where every morning, people have to leave with their belongings, which is not great, for your lifestyle or anything. But once they become admitted to our shelter program, we screen them for whether they're going to be able to live in community for long periods of time. And the OWL program, being low barrier, that's not something we're going to try to find out. We're going to try to find out, can you hold it together for this one night to be indoors with us? And if you're good to go at that level, then that's great. But for the women's program, we work a little harder to make sure that it's going to be a good fit. The women's women's program also provides a lot more community engagement. We have many more volunteers on site every night. I was on the phone with the church where we're being hosted tonight because 2 volunteers showed up early and the lead volunteer wasn't there yet to open the trailer. So we had at least 3 volunteers on site, plus the dinner, plus the pastor of University Lutheran is dropping in tonight to have dinner with us. So a lot more people engaged from the community because it is a more stable program, right? And we can really more vouch for, like, this is going to be a safe place for everyone to be together. And we don't want to have intrusions like that at an overnight warming location where really we just want people to come indoors and get their peace and get some sleep and stay safe. It is primarily a life-saving measure and not a community building measure. So those are the differences that I see between the programs.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to add, yeah, it is a low barrier program, but there is like a list of rules. And when people come in, we have them look at the rules and that they need to state that they are able to be there in good faith by following the rules for their safety, for the safety of the facility, for the safety of their fellow guests and staff.
Commissioners, should we have a discussion or do we do public comment first?
Well, we can do the call for public comment if anybody in person or online would like to.
Councilmember Lithcott-Hames has her hand raised. Councilmember Lithcott-Hames has her hand raised.
Please.
Okay, I'll go ahead and just go ahead, council member.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. Can you hear me?
We can go ahead,
hear
please.
you.
Yes.
Great. I am happy to go after the commissioners. I just raised my hand prematurely. As usual, I think as liaison, I should not speak first, but defer to the folks who are on the commission. And then I'm happy to ask my question if it hasn't already been asked by them.
Sounds good. So we'll see now if folks are filling in. Are there any hands online for this agenda item? And are you filling in for this one, for the next one? So I think we are good to
We
go
can
ahead
to
with.
commissioners.
Yes.
You know, we have the Honorable Dunbar, who's instrumental in homeless services throughout the city.
So I have a question as to, do you communicate regularly with Hotels Inc.?
I would say yes. Last year we had Life Move staff that was on staff for the shelter as well, and we communicate regularly with the Life Move staff.
But I mean, the Heart Homes.
Yes,
Yeah,
we do. Yes, Heart and Home does that, the staff on site. 2 of these staff, the intake coordinators, are members of staff at Life Moves. So they were able to pass contacts back and
Okay.
forth. And also speaking to Commissioner Krause's question earlier, we also were able to pass a few women from the overnight warming location
That
into
was my question as to
into
whether there
each of the
was
shelters.
transition.
Yeah, we were
from
able
one
to
to the other.
transition some
and-
to us and some
And
to
then
Hotel Design.
a historical trivia question, but then there's a point to it. Why is it called Hotel de Zinc? Do you remember?
I was not here at that time.
No, it was the 1930s. The chief of police was Chief Zink. And he said, this was during the big depression of the 1930s, we need to get they didn't call them homeless people, they called them tramps then, into the churches, and the churches began then providing housing. But then my question is, do you collaborate with the police department? If they were to pick up somebody who's outside on a cold night, can the police bring them over to the
Absolutely,
warming
they
center?
can. Yes,
So I mean, do
absolutely.
you have regular communication with the police department?
Yes, and they are aware when the owl is open. We do make sure that there's communication to any of the service centers and the police and the libraries before we activate, so that anyone who would need to be referred or is available to be referred could make a connection with a night indoors.
Great, thank you very
Right,
much.
so every night that the owl operates, I inform a group of city staff member. Among them is the police department, and they have a partner's contact information. So if they do come across someone, that we've made arrangements ahead of time, if we still have room, they are able to bring folks over, and they're in direct contact with her regarding that.
I can think of at least 3 times when it happened during our pilot.
I just wanted to thank you so much. This is incredible. It's so fantastic to hear about this work. I was wondering, is there any data about whether the people who use the owls, are they on any sort of path to permanent housing, or is that not data we collect?
At present, that is not data we collect. It is, we do try to offer whatever information we have. We have binders full of information, program information that is available. We try to let people know that it's there. But again, making someone fill out forms could be a barrier at some times. And the goal of the program is saving lives. So if we can make that relationship, we will do it. We did enroll a few people in the HMIS countywide database of homeless management information system. But for the most part, we do what we can and we try to make the doors open, but that is not the primary goal.
Thank you.
And Aparna, would you like to speak to any data about that?
Oh yeah, I wanted that. That's just what I was going to say. I think there were 2 people who we specifically put on the housing waiting list. So we filled out a VI SPIDAT, which is the form that basically allows them to be prioritized on the waiting list.
Fantastic.
I'll just pile on because I think this is worthy of a pile on of praise. Absolutely fantastic and incredible work. And I just love the fact that it seems like you really try not only to just give people a place to stay, but to really welcome them into a place to stay. I think maybe even more than the warmth, that sense of belonging somewhere for a night is probably very essential. I'm curious that you didn't end, well, I'm not sure if you're done, but I think this just begs the next steps. And you said it was open for 15 nights last year. I can't really remember how many nights it rained, but was that like every night that it rained? Could you have been open more? I'm just curious about next steps, growth. I mean, since clearly you were able to pull this off so in such a successful way, what can we do to make sure that this program continues, and how would we need to expand it?
So I'll take the first crack at that, and if Aparna or Mary want to add anything to it. So we were open the nights that there was a declared inclement weather alert. We had funding for more nights, and we have funding for more nights this year if there are more inclement weather alerts. It really depends on the year. The year before we had this program, there were like 40-something nights of inclement weather alerts. Now, as Aparna said, there were some nights that it's this combination of conditions that the county looks at. And Aparna and I are at weekly meetings that is countywide, that is with communities and organizations that have OWL programs. So so did that answer it? Or there might be, our partners here might want to add something to it.
I think Aparna may want to speak to it, but I will just note that the inclement weather declaration is sometimes challenging because you can look at a day and you can think it is cold, but it turns out it's just 1 degree not cold enough, right? And those decisions are also made several days in advance, and they absolutely do their best to predict what is going to come, and it may or may not pan out exactly that way. They're very good at what they do, and sometimes they just miss it, and it turns out colder than you want, and we all just sit at home thinking, man, we missed it. We missed it, but we do our best and we respond to the way the county is managing that data. There can sometimes be disconnects between what the weather person on the radio or the TV is saying, and what you see on the ground versus the fact that the OWL is or is not open. And that's a challenge on the ground for folks in the library or in the PD to be able to say, like, it seems rainy, I don't know. But we really go right now with the declaration. There are other standards of what that emergency could be based on, but at the present time, we're using the county standards.
Do you think that we should consider revising that standard? Like something like if the weather service says 5 days in advance, or I'm just curious, like what you think might be a better standard. It's nice to have a standard. It makes it clean and clear, but perhaps.
I think we're having internal conversations, what may or may not be possible.
Great.
Yeah.
I have a quick question, which is, if you had a magic wand how many more centers would you need and or want? I mean, is 10 enough?
Um, Having 10 people indoors is quite useful and helpful to those 10 people. But there are hundreds of people in North County who have nowhere to sleep.
Okay.
And obviously, it would be amazing to have a greater capacity. It is always interesting to try to manage that. You know, you do have to find all of those staff who have to be ready to be on call for, you know, fairly low but decent wage, but on short notice, right? So you imagine that, right? That you're on call for, if it rains next week on Thursday, I need you to work. And otherwise, maybe you don't work at all, right? So this is a challenge to staff these types of places. And so I'm grateful that we're able to do what we can. I'm grateful to the staff. We would love to expand the capacity, of course. We are people with, you know, who are trying to alleviate suffering of homelessness. So yes, we would love to expand.
And I will just add to that.
I was just going to say, we're also looking at the impact of the Home Key project when that opens with its 88 or more beds, and what that, just the combination of those two. So it'll be a little bit in flux to see the need and the local numbers.
How many beds does the new center have?
I thought 88, but
That's what I saw on the website.
right. But I also think that Opportunity Services Center, the housing site, also has, I think, 88 space for 88 too. So
Which one is that?
the housing side of the Opportunity Center, is that right, Commissioner Barr?
It's either 88 or 89.
Yeah.
Independent apartments, yeah.
Right. Go ahead, Aparna.
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna add, in Santa Clara County, approximately 75% of people who are unhoused sleep unsheltered. This is, you know, according to counts that happen in January, which is actually, it's during the cold weather season, so that's a month where probably more people are sheltered than if you were to look later in the year. This actually puts us in one of the we're, you know, have the one of the highest unsheltered homelessness rates of major counties in this country. So I think in light of that, to your question, I think definitely, you know, the ultimate solution to this is more affordable housing. But while that's being figured out, I think you know, having many more options for emergency near-term shelter is critical.
Councilwoman, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Vice Chair. I just want to pile on with the praise for this incredible solution. I want to thank Mary and Aparna and Minka, Elena, the library staff, the other staff, the volunteers. As Vice Chair Kraus said, you are all angels. As Minka just said, when Project Home Key transitional housing comes online, we will have, I believe it's 88 units serving up to a couple hundred people. Not all those units are for singles. So the number will be higher than 88 people. And that's good. And that's underway. And here we are, you know, focusing on the now, the next cold or rainy night. I want to just lean in to the notion that expanding until we have longer term solutions. Expanding would obviously be a great thing. I'm sure it breaks all of our hearts when we hear it's limited to 10. We can all picture the 11th person or the 12th, picture the person with a pet who gets turned away. I understand why. And yet, of course, the pets are in danger as well when the weather is inclement. And so I find myself wondering, where do you envision expanding to if we were, I guess I'll put it this way, how many do get turned away? Does anyone have a handle on that?
I'm
Aparna,
happy
can
to.
you answer that?
Yes, absolutely. No, I'm happy to speak to this. There were definitely a few nights. It was not every night, but there were definitely, I would say like 2 or 3 nights when we had more than 10 people wanting to stay with us. What happened on some of those nights is actually we didn't end up officially having to turn people away. Sometimes some folks, like on our very first night, I think we absolutely would have had more than 10. And some folks came and saw that there were more than 10 people. And, one gentleman came up to me, introduced himself, and he said, I think I have a place where I can stay warm. I don't think that's true for a lot of these other folks. So he actually voluntarily kind of left on his own. And, we had that happen on a couple other nights as well. I can think of, a couple people who we put up the owl is full tonight sign, and they came up to the door and they saw that, and we gave them whatever supplies we had on hand, but couldn't have them stay with us for the night. So it's hard to put an exact number on it because of some of these factors, but there were at least a few people.
I think the HRC and council, I imagine, would be interested in seeing a proposal for where the next site would be. So I'll just throw that out there. I also like the question. I think it was Commissioner Stimler who was asking about whether our local level solution should have maybe increased standards over what the county currently uses. To me, it's sort of, maybe we would go 5 degrees higher in temperature, for example. And I would just encourage us to think about the possibility of doing that. You guys, best, and particularly for those who are making the decisions and are wringing their hands and feeling badly in the middle of the night in a comfortable bed, knowing, the weatherman or the weather person didn't have it right, and now we know, we weren't able to provide this amazing resource. So I'm excited to hear more discussion at a later date about perhaps revising up the standards. I guess the final question I have is, I know that we received some community backlash when the owl was opened. Some members of our community were, why didn't we know? Why weren't we told? Or why weren't we asked? Concerned about their safety or the propriety. And, this is understandable, I suppose, but also unfortunate when you're really looking at the fact that we're just trying to bring people in to save lives. And yet we know that community buy-in is essential. So I want to ask staff, I know that a new approach is underway for this season about informing the community. I know you've alluded to it, Minka, I think, or somebody did. I'd love to know more specifically what plans are in place to do the necessary community outreach. What will it entail? And, how can we really support that conversation happening and going well so that we don't have or that we reduce the negative backlash to this wonderful angelic owl opportunity?
So as Aparna mentioned, we are going to be hosting an open house. And at that open house, it will be set up as if the owl is open, along with some information boards. Heart and Home city staff will be there, and we will do outreach to the neighbors to invite them to come, invite any member of this board and commission, any member of the community. We'll be working with our communications team to get that information out in the community. Folks can come, see what it looks like, ask questions, get a sense of what people do, what they're not allowed to do while they're in the room, and have it just really be a very informative space. So that is being planned. As Aparna said, we don't have a date yet, but that will be an opportunity for members of the community to see what it's like and ask us one-to-one questions. And if they have concerns, to share them and for us to listen with open ears.
That's great. I look forward to supporting that effort and promoting it through my channels. And I plan also to promote, I took some screenshots of your slides, Aparna, and I will certainly be promoting the fact that people can donate dinners. I think you'll, find, we could maybe drum up the number of people who are excited to be a tiny part of this broader solution. So I just want to close with gratitude. Proud to be a resident in a city that is operating an owl. This is really my first opportunity to learn about it in depth, and I'm just, you know, in a time when there's a lot of darkness, this is such a glimmer of warmth and light. So thank you so much.
One other question, as Councilwoman suggested, we can't grab screenshots, but if you make them available to us on the commission, I'm happy to spread the word for donations of food and time and maybe money over my social network, which is very strong. And I know our fellow commissioners have equally as strong networks.
I'd just like to respond to that and just to close the circle of gratitude. It is bold of the city of Palo Alto to have taken this move to fund this overnight warming location. It shows an open heart and care for all the residents of this city. And we have been really grateful for the partnership that we've received, not just on this program, but also through our women's shelter program, through the HISRAP grant that we received, and past support as well. We feel very much supported as a very small organization that is volunteer run. We feel incredibly supported by the city of Palo Alto and the programs that you've made available through this commission.
Thank you. Should we move on to the next item?
Thank you, Aparna. Thank you, Mary.
And thank you for coming in. I've only known you by a written word. It's now very, very nice to see the person with the work.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Shall we move to item 4? Minka, are we ready for that? All right, should we ask for public comment or should we introduce item 4?
I would ask that you introduce it, Vice Chair, and then your
Sure.
opportunity to go to public comment and then go back to the commission, however format you would like.
Okay. The background on item number 4 is that the HRC Subcommittee on Public Safety held a security meeting where we had over, I think, 80 participants from the community focused on hate crimes last month. Given the feedback that we've gotten from several diverse community members, we've been urged to develop a statement on hate incidences, because law enforcement that spoke very thoroughly to us that evening was very clear of where the ground rules are and where the parameters of what is prosecuted and what is not. And what we're seeing is that there's been an explosion of hate incidences around the country and our community as well. So I want to suggest that we offer a resolution condemning such activities and holding up the standards of the city of Palo Alto. I'd invite public comment. Is there anybody online, Minka?
So if anybody wants to raise their hand to speak on this matter, I will go by how the list that Elena has done. So it looks like she is ready. So hold on, I need to get myself ready. So the first speaker is Lori Myers. Lori, go ahead, you have 3 minutes.
Hi there, I'm Lori Myers. I'm a 30-year resident of Palo Alto. Thank you to the HRC for your listening sessions with our diverse communities, your session on hate crimes with DA Jeff Rosen, and your hard work to fight hate. Palo Alto should have zero tolerance for hate against anyone in our community, period. Hate incidents are frighteningly common and completely underreported in Palo Alto. Here are a few recent anti-Semitic hate incidents that targeted Jews in our community. A Jewish middle schooler was told by another student that he had to win a race in PE because he couldn't lose to a Jew. A city council public commenter blamed Jews for censorship. An HRC commenter called out one of our city council candidates as a, quote, Jewish white supremacist, genocide supporting Zionist. A letter to the editor in the Palo Alto Weekly spoke of the Jewish lobby and Zionist Kool-Aid. Then there was the anti-Israel rally downtown, one of many this year, featuring anti-Semitic chanting over and over through downtown streets. And despite over a year of complaints, Palo Alto Library staff still recommends a book by an author who posted anti-Semitic messages on social media, including, quote, "We will slaughter you," and, quote, "I will drink your blood and eat your skulls." I'm not for book banning, but is this appropriate for a staff recommended list about the, quote, ongoing complexities of the Israel-Palestine conflict? Telling Jews we will drink your blood sounds like a hate incident to me. This is what we hear in public spaces, read in the newspaper, and find on recommended book lists. This is what we have to prepare our kids to face if we want them to participate in civic life by attending city council meetings. We have 2 requests. First, please mandate anti-Semitism training for all city leadership, council, HRC, law enforcement, library. This will help you recognize anti-Semitism so you can call it out and make real change here in Palo Alto. We also support training on Islamophobia and other kinds of hate. We stand against all hate. Second, we ask city leadership to publicly condemn hate wherever it happens, whether it's a swastika outside Trader Joe's or anti-Semitic chanting downtown. We support free speech, but we also support the free speech and right of city leadership to name and condemn hate incidents. Finally, I beg all of us in the community to lead by example. Let's show empathy, tolerance, and a willingness to listen. We can advocate for our causes without causing pain to our friends and neighbors. That is the Palo Alto way. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker in person is Cheryl G. Cheryl, please come to the podium.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Gold, and I've lived in Palo Alto for 33 years. I've raised my 2 great children here. I'm also the daughter of a Holocaust survivor and was raised with the knowledge that the horrors of the Holocaust could recur. And this has motivated me to take a strong hand when anti-Semitism occurs. At a Palo Alto rally this spring, a man held a sign saying, "Hamas has the right to exist. Hamas has the right to resist." As a reminder, Hamas is the terrorist group that calls for the murder of Jews. This was anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, and by any definition, a hate incident. But no one called it out and condemned it. The result is that we didn't know if anyone noticed or even cared. My request is for Palo Alto to adopt the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, which has been adopted by the US State Department, and make it a policy to publicly identify and call out anti-Semitism and hate incidents of all kinds whenever they occur. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you, and many thanks for the important work that you're doing.
Thank you. The next speaker online is Sarit. Hold on, let me go ahead, please.
I think you unmuted the wrong person.
Yes, and I just corrected myself, but thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Is it safe? It's a question my family and I find ourselves asking more than ever before. Is it safe to go to synagogue or to attend an event at the JCC? Will there be enough security? Is it safe to send our kids to Jewish day school? And are the guards at the entrance really enough? Is it safe to shop at Stanford Shopping Mall today? Is it safe to host a social gathering in our backyard? Is it safe to put up Hanukkah decorations outside our home without worrying about graffiti or smashed windows? Is it even safe to speak here in this public forum. This question, is it safe, comes from the troubling reality that anti-Semitism is neither distant nor abstract. It is visible all around us, all the time, in our city, our country, and across the world. It appears on playgrounds, in schools and universities, at work and in public spaces. How did we get here? How is it possible that a Palo Alto elementary school student, as young as 6 years, is bullied by his classmates simply for being Jewish? And how can it be that 65% of all religiously motivated hate crimes in the United States target Jews, who make up just 2% of the population? These aren't just statistics. They are the painful realities we live with every day. This rise in anti-Semitism isn't just an attack on the Jewish community, it's a symptom of a deeper problem, a warning sign of a society moving down a dangerous path of intolerance, division, and hate, one that ultimately will harm everyone. Fighting anti-Semitism is a call to action, for everyone who believes in justice and equality to stand up and act. Each of us has the power to reject hate, whether by challenging harmful comments, educating ourselves and others, or standing in solidarity with communities under threat. I am deeply, deeply grateful to this commission, our city council, and this community for refusing to accept this troubling new reality and for standing firmly in upholding our shared values of inclusion, dignity, and respect. While the question, is it safe, will not disappear easily, I am hopeful that with this resolution and the steadfast support of our leaders and community, we are working towards a safer, more inclusive Palo Alto, one where my family and all families can live with a little less fear and a lot more hope. Thank you.
Thank you. Hold on. The next speaker in person is Allison R. Allison, go ahead, please.
I'm Allison Rosen, and I've lived in Palo Alto since my baby was born 19 years ago. She went through all the Palo Alto schools and just started college. Richie Torres recently said, people want to know that elected officials have your back. And I cannot tell you how deeply grateful I am that you're prosecuting or doing something about hate incidents. Am I loud enough? Yeah, okay. We know Jews have been targeted for thousands of years, including my family's parents and grandparents. However, the explosion of anti-Semitism after October 7th shook my sense of safety to its core. Soon after, small groups of us at Stanford campus met, and we realized how alone we felt because few non-Jews understood our profound sense of vulnerability. All over the Bay Area, we're constantly running to school boards and city councils, fighting boycotts designed to destroy Israel, a country fighting for its existence where half the world's Jews live. We urgently need education for elected officials to understand how toxic hate incidents are to our sense of safety and to that of society. We also need vigilance. There are massive international organizations constantly pressuring the community to attack Jews and Israel and to create an environment that makes being Jewish unsafe and frightening. A group of us paid to replace a billboard on 101 that said anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism over the face of a child. And we realized it cost $22,000 a month. Where's that money coming from? And there are more and more. These blood libels inspire hate and danger, a danger to us all. So please be vigilant and make sure that the education happens. Thanks.
Thank you. The next speaker, and I believe the last speaker, is Isabel M. Isabel, go ahead, please.
Hi, sorry, I'm not Isabel. I'm here for Isabel. Yeah. My name is Isabel Marcus. Last month, I was the target of both a hate crime and a hate incident in Palo Alto at the Stanford Mall. On October 7th of this year, I stopped by the mall with my husband on our way to a commemorative event for the October 7th tragedy at the JCC. We encountered a mob shouting pro-Hamas terrorist chants. I was holding a small Israeli flag and wearing my Star of David necklace. The mob immediately surrounded us. A woman stole the flag from my hand, and a man from the mob stood in front of me as she ran off with it. Besides obscene gestures made at us, another man yelled at me, "Go back to Poland," a vile anti-Semitic slur. This is like telling another minority, African American or Asian American, to go back to Africa or go back to Asia. I am an American citizen. My mother is a Sephardic Jew from Algeria, and my father's family has roots in Spain and Italy, and before that, the Middle East. This was a shocking and terrifying incident. No one intervened as a mob of 50 or 60 people surrounded and harassed 4 Jews. How can such acts of physical intimidation, threats, and anti-Semitic displays be tolerated in our cities, in our malls? I was the victim of both a hate crime and a hate incident in Palo Alto, and yet no further arrests were made beyond those involved in the Apple Store vandalism. A resolution condemning hate incidents is a good first step. Specific anti-Semitism training for city and police officers and the immediate strong condemnation of such hate acts are also crucial. We must unite and stand together against hate in our community. Thank you very much to the committee.
There are no more speakers, Chair.
Should we put up the draft resolution and let's have discussion? This was a resolution that I, and with others reading, developed coming out of our security symposium, seminar, whatever we want to call it, last month. And I thought I heard it from all communities that they want us to acknowledge that these incidents occur, and saying that they are real is going to be a step toward acknowledgement, understanding, education, and moving forward. So I turn this over to my commissioners, and please let me know your thoughts. Does this go far enough? Are there things you'd like to include or exclude? It is the work of the HRC, not my personal work. Katie? I'm sorry, Commissioner Causey?
Thank you, thank you. I think this is perfect. I'm ready to move forward on this. As a commissioner, I personally always favor us moving forward pragmatic policies over resolutions, but the fact that we have had multiple communities saying they want a resolution to acknowledge these hate incidences, I'm ready to move forward on this.
Thank you. Commissioner Stimler.
I also support this. The one friendly amendment I would make would be to take out both verbal and written, since I think hate crimes can also be acts of violence.
I couldn't.
Oh, my friendly amendment is to remove verbal and written, since hate crimes can include acts of violence, not just verbal things that suggest that this is somehow about speech when it could be about something much more criminal.
Okay. Or do we want friendly amendment? Do we want to specify or physical attacks?
I think we just have to have too long of a list. I think a hate crime includes any kind of crime that's done motivated due to somebody's identity. So I think that I think it will cover it, so long as we just take out verbal and written.
I'm fine, but Commissioner?
And since, just for process wise, since this has not been, this is just like a draft to talk about, you don't need to worry about friendly amendments or something like that. If she would have moved it, and someone would have
Yeah.
seconded, then you need to
I
get to
will-
that level of formality.
I wanted conversation before I moved. Yes, sir.
I would just like to raise an issue as a person raised as a Protestant Christian, but married to a Jewish wife. And also following the news, the United Nations Human Rights Council has passed very serious criticisms of the state of Israel for human rights violations in the Middle East. So that simply indicates that, and I do not believe the United States Human Rights Council is anti-Semitic. So that any criticism of the state of Israel does not in and of itself constitute anti-Semitism, in my opinion. And so how do we, I mean, I have not seen anyone draw a clear line, but the idea is that example of criticism of the state of Israel is not perceived as anti-Semitic on the part of the United Nations Human Rights Council. I'd like to hear any thoughts of my fellow commissioners.
Commissioner Causey?
I do acknowledge that. I don't think that's what we're here to discuss tonight. I think we're here to discuss language in a resolution.
True, but we're not providing a definition of hate crimes. We're using a phrase without a definition. So I'm comfortable doing that with the understanding that we're not defining what is and what is not a hate crime.
What we did in the seminar last month is there are legal definitions of what constitutes a crime and what isn't a crime. What we're trying to address here is the explosion of incidents that are happening all over the country to all communities, and coming out with a statement that we abhor hate, we condemn hate, and we stand as a community united in our actions. And I don't think we're here to talk about the UN and their rulings.
Would it be appropriate to add then that unite against all acts of hate, bias, harassment, and intimidation of individuals?
I
don't understand I don't know what that adds, I guess.
Well, that just the whole issue about the United Nations Human Rights Commission, and what is that? It's not an act of hate. Is it an act of bias? Is it an act of intimidation of the United Nations Human Rights Council? It's pretty severe, is what they passed.
But why don't I move this and then we'll go. I wanted us to have time to talk about it.
Yeah, thank you.
Could we move this now?
That is your choice, Vice Chair.
Please, could we move?
You would need to follow the process to do so. Staff is just observant of that, but not
Okay.
leading that.
I propose a resolution as follows. And do I have a second?
JD, you want a second? I can go ahead and second it.
Now we're open to friendly amendments, please, and may we discuss?
Why don't we remove bias unless you want to give an example of, because hate, harassment, intimidation, those I know what.
They're
I-
actually
I would-
illegal.
I
Being
would be-
biased isn't necessarily illegal.
Yeah, I'd be comfortable with the removal of bias and leaving it to the hate, harassment, and intimidation as what we're defining as a hate crime.
I'm fine.
Yeah, I like
We
that.
accept the friendly amendment.
Were you clear about that, Elena?
It was removing the word bias.
Yes. Can I call?
But can I make an observation?
Sure.
Because you're changing the part that says the city of Palo Alto's commitment, but so that is reflective of something else, but is it that you want to put it in the section what the HRC is making a statement about? Because the second part is reflective of,
Thank you for catching that. Thank you for
Yeah.
catching that. We can leave bias in that. Yeah.
Has the city council passed a resolution that has these words in it?
The city council has passed a unity statement and has the mayor and councilwoman Venker have developed, and it was passed by the city council of Palo Alto.
With these words in it?
I'm only deflecting because you're looking at me, Commissioner, and this came from the vice chair, so I cannot speak to this.
I'm unclear whether the word bias was in it. So I am accepting that we remove it and it be reflective of the wishes of the HRC.
But I think that would not weaken the city's commitment to unite against all acts of hate, harassment, and intimidation.
But they can take it and then modify it as they see fit.
Certainly, if they want to modify the word, that's up to the city council.
Exactly.
I want to be clear, this is not a statement you're passing on to the city council. This is a statement that the HRC is making as an entity.
I understand.
No,
that.
I'm just reflecting, because there was my understanding that Commissioner Barr thought that the city council could change it, but this is not going to the
Okay.
city council.
So removing the word bias would not weaken the statement.
Exactly.
Okay.
Would you want that removed?
I would feel quite a bit more comfortable if the word bias were removed, and I would support the statement as written minus that word.
I can take a friendly amendment. Thank you. Can we move to a vote?
I would move we accept this amended resolution.
All right, I can do the vote for you. Commissioner Barr?
For the amended, yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Vice Chair Kraus?
Aye.
Commissioner Stimler?
Aye.
Commissioner Causey?
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you. Let's move. You renumbered these on me, Minka. Let's move to, yeah, from the first to this one. Yeah. It's
Oh, you want to see mine?
item-
Oh, you have them.
I got it. Let's move to item 5, which is the report from the ad hoc subcommittees. I believe Elena is going to put that up on the screen. Is that correct?
Yes, I can. Just a moment.
And while we're waiting for that, do we have any public comments?
If anybody would like to make public comment on the work of the HRC's ad hoc subcommittee, feel free to do so. Now, you might want to just speak to it first if someone wanted to make a
Sure.
comment.
I'm happy
We
to.
still have a couple folks here.
It's just us.
Us and Mary.
This
And Mary, and
item-
one
Mary's
person
here.
online.
We're here. This is the report from our work plan that defines the tasks of the subcommittees, and which we all serve on. So it's our work reflective across a number of categories. First is inclusion and belonging. The next is public safety. The third is climate change. And the fourth is public health. So would the commissioners like to speak to the points in their committee?
We can just give a quick overview because our committee hasn't, well, I can speak to the committees I'm on, which are the public. Oh, sorry.
I mean, it'll be okay.
So, I mean, I just think we could talk about these more broadly
Yeah,
rather than going point by point, especially since I know a lot of us were pretty tied up in the last 6 weeks or so with the election and whatnot. So we haven't made a lot of progress. I think we, at least on the public health side, are still working towards those goals, but haven't made significant, I would say not made significant progress. We're meeting Monday morning and we can push forward. We can push
well,
forward.
we've been busy with the
Great.
security and
Yes.
in the public safety area, and I suspect that you have been as well.
Just to follow up a couple of things in the public health, at the member of the community meeting on adolescent mental health, Dr. Joshi, Shashank Joshi from Stanford University was there, and I spoke to him, and he
Awesome.
would be very much available to provide input and consultation
Great.
if we were to want it. I also spoke to Vic Ojakian, former mayor, former council member, but he is no longer active in the National Alliance for
Okay.
Mental Illness, NAMI. But I also spoke with a different hat on, with my Alvanitas board hat on. I spoke with Paula Wolfson, and they have a very important program called the Alvanitas Care Partners that provide support and advice to either elderly individuals who need care support or to the families caring for elderly individuals who need support. It is something that they charge services for. They charge for their consultation unless it's a low-income family, and then they don't have to charge. And I had asked Minka whether that might be eligible for his RAP funding, but it turns out that Avenida, separate from his RAP, gets a
Yes.
yearly grant, and it's up to Avenidas.
Yeah, contract.
A yearly contract. Does it say how they use that money, or just up to them?
Yes, there's a very defined scope of services that they have in their contract, which enumerates all the programs that the city funding is supporting. And I believe caregiving is one of them.
Okay, well, so anyway, that's Paula Wolfson. So that's my follow-up.
I would love to see if we can schedule some of these experts to speak to us. The provision of adult care, senior care, is something that so many of my colleagues are facing. How do they afford it? How do they support it? What do they do going forward? I know Councilwoman Haynes has been living through this as well. I think that would be inordinately beneficial if you could do that, Commissioner Bart.
Would you like me to invite Paula Wolfson, the head of Avenidas Care Partners, to speak to the commission?
Yeah, that's certainly something for it. I'm just thinking about if that's something for the senior, because there was also the talk of convening a senior summit. So, and having some of these topics that you've raised, Commissioner, you Vice Chair, those might be nice topics for the senior summit and to come back, because we did have all the individuals, but I think with your contacts, Commissioner, and with the contacts that Commissioner Stimler had for the summit, for the listening
Learning
session.
yeah.
I think then the point now might be just to gain some really good topics and bring folks together, and maybe even some non-senior providers, but people that work really cross-sectionally with them to all be in the room together. I think that could be a really good conversation, and then bring the results back to this group. That might be interesting.
I agree. And we're meeting on Monday morning, so we
great.
can get a little bit more tactical.
Yeah, that's
At
great.
that point, but I think we're all aligned. I think that would be a great idea to invite many of these experts and many of the care providers. We had Avenidas come and they did mention the care program when they came to the listening session last year. But I think it's time to sort of maybe take what we learned there and move into creating the summer, which I know we're already leagues ahead of because we've got you on the subcommittee. So I think we'll get there most likely in the next couple of months.
Now, regarding public safety, thank you for the support of the resolution for a next step. And we're going to be moving forward on two fronts, which is a lunch with the police and different faith leader and community leaders that the captain has asked for. And I conclude, and staff has concluded, that we'll see about scheduling that in the new year. And then also moving forward on the next public safety arena, which actually has been influenced me, the chief of police, which is the area of fraud. And how we can make people much more intelligent about these issues and hopefully prevent some from happening. So just stay tuned.
I know it's hard to work cross subcommittees because of Brown Act stuff, but let's make sure that if we do have a senior summit, that would be an excellent opportunity to discuss fraud with people in the community who are often impacted.
I think we should work together.
how to chop that up.
Exactly. Are there any other subcommittees, any other information?
Not necessarily right now, but just looking ahead to a year full of mass deportations. I think that as the HRC, we should be really looking ahead to January and how we will be able to invite members of the community who will be seeing their colleagues, coworkers, friends, and loved ones impacted, and how we might respond as a community.
I concur, as you know. It's an issue very close to my heart. Are there any other commissioner reports at this point?
Are you, just for checking, are you going off of this agenda item and then to commissioner reports?
Yes, I
Okay,
am.
I just wanted to be clear.
That's why I said that way.
Okay.
But I'm moving on. And now let's go to commissioner reports.
I had just one brief comment that I have been asked to serve on the Downtown Housing Citizens Advisory Council.
Congratulations, sir. Is there any news from the council? Councilwoman?
Thank you, Vice Chair. I don't have any news to report. I did want to ask a procedural question, if I may. I, in preparing for this meeting, pulled up the packet and found myself wishing that the draft statement that was passed for item 4, that the draft was there. And similarly with the ad hoc work plans or goals, I feel like for members of the public, it's great to have those things in advance. You're more inclined to comment in public comment if you actually can see a little bit more of the substance underneath the agenda item. So I just wanted to make that request. Perhaps there's a reason why we can't or we shouldn't, but I thought I would ask.
I think if you want to speak to the other one, for number 5, I hear you for that. I think the vice chair was taking the lead on number 4, but with number 5, I hear you, council member. I think it was just kind of at the last minute there, we were thinking of using the more written document that we had. And it was in the past, at first it was just intended to have people give oral reports. And then we referred back to this document that I think Elena had created that was just reflective of notes from previous meetings, but feedback heard and will be implemented.
And Councilwoman, I hear you. My bad, and we'll go forward and do it better.
No worries. It's not a criticism. It's more like, everyone wants to be as prepared as they can to engage at the meeting. And I for one would appreciate the opportunity in advance. I'm less adept on the fly. So thank you for hearing me on that. I appreciate it. And that's all for me, except for gratitude to the HRC for your service. I'm really, yet again, just feel very fortunate to be your council liaison.
Thank you. We appreciate you. Staff, is there anything further?
The only thing that I wanted to bring to your attention, you have at places 2 flyers from Life Moves Opportunity Services Center. One, it's for the same event, but one is just if you want to give it to someone who might attend, and the other is donations that they are looking for. It is a Friendsgiving, so you are welcome to come that day and join the festivities. That is the day before Thanksgiving. On Thanksgiving Day, it's been a long tradition that Downtown Streets team at All Saints Church has hosted a Thanksgiving dinner as well. I send that information on to you this afternoon. So you have information about both. They're both looking for volunteers. They're both looking for food and so forth. Let's see. The other thing is to talk about the December meeting for new commissioners. Sometimes we have a December meeting, sometimes we don't. Years ago, there were some December get-togethers. That's kind of gone away. When I talked to the chair, her feeling was let's put the conversation, if we're going to have the meeting or not, and maybe just base it on what agenda items are ready for next month. So if any of your subcommittees are having items that are ready for a deeper discussion, then just like an update like we did tonight, to thank you for all your follow-ups for what you've done for them. But if they're ready for a deeper discussion, let us know. But we may be deciding whether to host the meeting or not based on a number of agenda items and probably based on attendance. So that is December 12th. So
I have a question that might impact whether we need to meet again. His wrap applications, I saw a mention in I think the Palo Alto Weekly or some local press around council requesting some changes to how we were doing his wrap funding. And I was curious if there were updates on that and if we would need to meet again, maybe to talk about that since the cycle is coming up quickly.
So that is the nonprofit audit study. So that report has a lot of depth to it, and they're really looking at ways in which they can set up processes with a lot of nonprofits that we have contracts with. As far as his wrap, that's always it's the grant. So as far as the process and how the contracts are set up and the accountability, his rep is always set up as a model for how we should do that. There was some feedback on maybe some of the review criteria that Elena and I are taking into account but we are not releasing the HISRAP RFP. The RDA will be giving a presentation to Policy and Services because that's where the next steps for the nonprofit audit work will go. And it thought that would be a good place for them to hear about the needs assessment in a much more compact presentation. But there will not be like an opening of the HISRAP process.
Gotcha.
We are
Thanks for that
always open to, I think at that meeting with the Policy and Services Committee, and when the whole nonprofit work goes back to the full council, of course, staff will have our ears open, but there is the need to stay on track for the HISRAP process. So that will go out probably the first week of December. And like I said, Elena and I had our ears open for feedback that we received in Finance Committee meetings last spring and when the audit report went as a study session.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Minka. I just wasn't sure where we were with all that, and knowing that it was coming up would have.
Right.
But it seems like it's not actually relevant for the discussion around the December meeting. So I think we're fine there.
And I think, every time this nonprofit audit study and anything that revolves around HISRAP, we will let you know when that is on the agenda. I think what it all started out as looking for, if HISRAP should be 1% of the general fund.
Yes.
And then we brought in the audit, and then we brought in looking at some of the other nonprofits that would like to be supported or are supported by the city outside of a process. And so the project got a little bigger through all these dimensions. And then, as you know, projects sometimes get bigger and then they kind of get smaller again as the different pieces come together. So there's definitely more work that the council is interested in doing in their conversations regarding our relationships with nonprofits.
Minka, have we made progress on the different ways of calculating the size of the funds?
That conversation, the latest is that conversation will still continue to take place either at Finance Committee or at Council as part of the next budget process, or at some point sooner. So what we will do when we distribute the HISRAP RFP, we just say it's approximately this amount.
Okay.
And we base it on what the previous year was, and it could be more, it could be less, but we say it will be approximately X amount. And that leaves room for the council earlier, like March, April, or during the council process to make another investment in HISRAP.
I attended.
You did.
Can you make me aware of when the next?
Oh yeah, I'll let you all aware.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I believe I've done that for each of the meetings when it's gone to finance and when it went to council 2 or 3 weeks ago.
So, Commissioner Sundler, given your comments about mass deportations, do we dare take the December timeframe off, or do we come back renewed and rejoiced and attack it frontally in January? And I just want to know what you all want to do.
I think the subcommittee, there's an economic justice subcommittee. I think we can discuss it within the subcommittee. I don't know that we would have anything to bring to the commission before then anyway.
I second that. I mean, I'm sure this is true in all industries, but as someone who works in nonprofit, the thing is like everybody is out in December, so it's hard to get anything done. So I'm sure we will be ready to move forward in January.
Commissioner?
January.
Okay.
So what is the consensus? I didn't hear Commissioner
They're
Barr.
thinking canceling the December meeting.
Okay.
Do we want to have a festivity or do we take that offline?
Just let me know. In the past, when it's been a festivity, at some points, it's been at a commissioner's home, and some points we had dinner at a restaurant, and in many points, we just said, see you in January. So it wasn't anything specifically that staff planned.
Okay, so should we adjourn? We are done. See you in January.
In January. You're all being invited to my